Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Tuesday. It's January 3rd, first new trading day of the 2017 year. So happy New Year to everybody. Hope you had a nice holiday and enjoyed the break. It was a pretty good day, trading day for the first day back. You never know what a day like this if the holiday will linger over for another day or two, but some really nice movement today. We started out with a gap open and had notice this. There's two pretty much leg measured legs up. You got this leg here, then you got a little correction, and another leg up. There's a two-tiered channel here. It looks like we overshot it here. This was during the overnight, so you can't rely on it maybe being a reversal after that. But we really got a new high, and then we reversed. And you got to assume with this gap, they're generally filled pretty quickly. I'm surprised we didn't fill it today. We came down and got really close, but we just couldn't get below that original. We had one failed break lower here, and technically you really could have gone long here. A lot of times you'll catch the low of the day like this, but with this gap not being filled and this trend line, this big channel here, I was a little bit leery of trying to pick any bottom, so I think you got to skip them. So from the afternoon, well, from early morning until close, it was really all downhill, all short. So I didn't see any. You might have considered a long in here, but I think you're better off to skip them because you might get burned. Because this is the first break here. We tried to go lower and couldn't, and we ended up rallying back and closing up for the day quite a bit. So, but all this was in the after 2 o'clock. So let's back out, talk about the trades I saw. And actually, early on, even though you got this little move up, this is really flat. Look how sideways that is, and prices are going back and forth. So at this point, you really could trade this either way. Um, there weren't many setups, unfortunately, but you could have traded it either way. So just wanted to point that out. But let's back out a little bit where it's a little bit bigger. And you had to be patient early on because this was really flat and sideways. Not a lot of volume early on. It's just kind of it looked like a holiday uh, day really starting out. So, but you had to sit here and be patient and wait on this first trade. Notice that you got a little shorter term trend working up. You get a break, move to a new high, and then we're kind of working down. And then you got this little uh, trend line working down. I also drew a trend line here just in case. Looks like it still came into play. We got the break and one leg down, two legs up, and another leg down. So it's two legs down to a new low, and then it bounced. Of course, if you drew that trend line and watched it bounce a few times, you really didn't need that. You have this support area right across here, and you get a little double test, a couple of double tests in here. So um, you didn't necessarily need this two-tiered channel, but it was helpful. Regardless. It might have helped you realize we may get a reversal up here because we did have this overshoot. But a lot of times when you get an overshoot that early in the morning, you can almost ignore it when it's during the overnight hours. But in this case, we just reversed. So, and you could say this is the big picture is almost a range type day with a nice big move up and a nice big move down, and then we moved higher again in the late afternoon. So it's really, there's a huge range here, but it doesn't really matter because there weren't many plays like that. It was all off the shorter term channels, the two-tier channel up, the channel coming down, and the shorter term stuff within that. So hope that makes sense. But anyway, we had the break here, move up, and then we're moving down. And if you played this one, notice we had a break, two legs up, and you get a little bearish bar here. Um, and that's a second entry short when you're looking for a new low and maybe a new trend to start down. So quick, easy move, and then it bounces again, turns up, and you didn't get a second entry here. I think you were if you'd went short here, of course, it'd been a nice trade, but I think you were better off skipping that one. Um, and then we moved to a new low, and then we tried to go lower here. It was tempting to try to go long here. And actually, you might have considered going long above this little, that's about a 3 tick bar. It is a second entry long. You do have a new low in place, but we're just kind of going sideways there. There's a couple of dojis in there. I'd just probably skip that and notice that. Let me go ahead and draw this on here. I don't have my line on here. But notice that little range there, and you get a little failed break higher and a bar there, and it's a failed second entry long. Counting from this direction. You tried to go higher twice, and so I like that little trade just to ride it back to this low if nothing else. And if you're getting a reversal and there's maybe some bigger pattern in here, you might catch a high point. But it's an easy scalp, and then you get a second entry long. Here's where your second entry long triggered, actually, right above this bar. And you can see that support. That's a double test of this level and of a previous double bottom. So you really could have gone long right above this bar, but I didn't like it because it's just a doji. It's a one bar trading range. And so when we got this bullish bar right here, this, you could almost call this green, this rather than blue, but I think you're okay to go long here either way. Knowing this is a little trading range, and as long as you got room to get out. But what I do is I let it break higher here and drop a limit order back in here and get a little better entry, just to make sure you had room to get out before you get back to these highs. And it wouldn't have mattered, but you don't know that ahead of time. So, or you could have let it break above this one and dropped a limit order in, but it's just that's too neutral. But your stop has to go below this bar because that's your true low signal bar right there. So even if you use this for your entry, your stop goes below this bar, and you just drop that limit order somewhere in there when it breaks above that one. So that's the way I'd recommend playing that one. It does pull back to and you get that trend line off those first few bars there, and it does pull back one more time. And this kind of like a pullback to test the EMA as well. That's a real bullish bar off that trend line. So you might consider that one, thinking that, hey, if nothing else, prices may just come back up and test these highs. And this turns out to be a pretty nice trade. You could have ridden this all the way up. And then watch what happens. You get your new high here, and you pull back. You get a first entry long. You pull back. When it broke higher here, you get a second entry long. It was tempting to want to go short there because that's where it looked like a failure right there. But that's too neutral, and you got 4 bars stacked up there in a doji. And what does that tell you? That's congestion. And so you may fail a couple of times. So if we would have broke below that big bearish bar, I'd have probably gone short, but it didn't. It turned back up, and then it gives you another bearish bar right here, and you get that little failed break higher as well. You can kind of see that little resistance area there. Again, I don't have it drawn, but let me put it on there so people can see it. But you can see that little congestion area. That's just a little small. Congestion is just a smaller trading range. And so you have to kind of be aware of the trading range rules. And we had a failed breakout here and a big bearish bar. And we've already got one leg down, and that's a two-legged correction. Notice one leg up, pull back, second leg up, and then it turns back down. So that's a good point that we may go lower right there. And at that point, I would look for at least a measured move like that right there. And so that gives you plenty of room. And where does that go to? Right to the lower trend line. And so that's usually a good indication that everything's lining up. So I'm looking for prices to come down here. And guess what? It actually shoots through there and pulls back and gives you a big bearish bar on a kind of a breakout pullback short type entry. But the thing I want you to see here is that you've got a double top right here, and you've got your second leg down in a measured leg, and when that fails, you should at least probably get a scalp out of that. So make sure that you understand what I'm doing here, and because otherwise this would probably need to be green. And also I drew this trend line right off the lows and drug it up, and it turned down right off that. It's pretty close to this lower one, but generally on a trade like that, we're probably going to go a lot lower. And I was expecting prices to try to possibly come fill this gap anyway. So at this point, I'm thinking, hey, you may catch a pretty high point, and you would have. If you caught either one of these trades, you would have caught the high of this whole move, and runners would have easily been good. So that's what I really like about that trade. It does give you a failed second entry long here. Notice this is a double top right here, so you can count that as new high first entry, and then it's moving down as second entry. But you're going short at some extreme lows. Uh, just not a good play. Even though it would have worked, it's not a good place to go short. And at this point, I'm steering clear of any longs because you don't know where this lower line is. You can put it there, but you don't know that that's it because there's no other evidence. So until it touches it a second time, do you really know that that's probably where the lower line is? I wasn't sure if the lower line wasn't down here somewhere. But in the end, that I moved my line there. That turns out to be it. So, but notice what's happening. You're moving up. You get a first entry short. Then you get a move up that fails, and you get a second entry short. But that's not a very good signal bar, either one of those. But when this one forms after breaking higher again, I like that one. You may not have been able to get in this trade. It moved pretty quick. But if you could get in it, take it. It does pull back, and it's almost like a little miniature repeat here. You get that uh, failed break higher, plus it makes a new high after the break of this little. Um, Notice that little trend line, and you get the break, and it moves to a new high, and then it goes lower again. So it's tempting to go short here, but with that being a doji and all, and it being a first entry because we did make a new swing low, so that's just a first entry. Wait on the lower high or the second entry, which comes here, and because you may go all the way over it here. So, but when you get this set up, I like going short there. And again, you would have had an easy runner there, and it does bounce where we put the line. So now you're looking for prices to probably go to the other side. But notice what happens. We just kind of start going sideways here. And you make this new high. You test it once. You test it twice. And you get a big bearish bar. And oops, it doesn't go down. It turns back up. I'm still not exiting right there. I'm going to hold on. And when it makes that lower high with that big bearish bar, you can enter there. And and I like adding on. This is one of those I like to add on because we're probably headed down to test the new low. Um, so I really like that setup. You had to be a little bit leery of this low here. Um, but when trying to go high that many times, we're probably going lower. So, but do be aware in most cases you need to make sure you got room to get out before this low right in here, especially because we bounced several times. But the bias is down, and we've tried multiple times to go high, and so are we probably going lower. And then of course it bounces down here, bounces again, and you get your first break of this trend line. And notice that big bearish bar. It's a second entry short. Notice that new low. Pull back first entry, pull back second entry, and it tested that line 3 times again. You really might have even considered going short right there, but I think you're better off to wait on this one. And you might have let it break lower and then drop a limit order back where this one would have been right there, one tick below that bar. And I believe it would have been filled, would have on my chart. Yours depends on how yours played out. And of course we bounce here again, and then you actually get a double test of this. So it's tempting to go long there, and it would have worked, but you don't have a new low in place. The bias is still pretty much down, so I think you need to skip any longs in here. Um, I'm willing to give that one a green one just because it's a double test of this, and it's a trap right there, and this is a trading range. We're probably headed to the upper side. Um, There's actually a failed second entry short there, but you getting long or short in the middle of a range is not always a good idea, so I don't recommend that one. I really don't. I think it would have still worked. Let me see how many ticks are in this bar. High of that one's 22.43.75. So 43.75. Yeah, it would have worked by exactly 5 ticks, which is what you need. So, but I still don't recommend taking that one. And then um, you move down and it makes another new low, and you get another first entry long there, kind of off the high, and it's a new low. So I don't recommend taking that one either. We're now back down to the lows. So that gets you into the 2 o'clock hour. Not much else there. So, but yeah, pretty good trading day. Lots of runners in here today. Again, you had to be really patient because it was slow at first, but then suddenly we start getting some movement, and there were some nice moves today in the end. So, but that's what I saw, and welcome back to welcome to a new year. Hopefully, we'll have a great trading year, and things will continue to go well with our trading. We'll continue to have some good volume and stuff so that we can trade. A lot of times, this time of year can be a lot of good moves, a lot of volume and stuff. So we'll see. Hopefully, it'll hold true to the yearly pattern. But generally, January and February can be some big moves in the market. And you see, we already are trading at 2,200. We took back all that sell-off really quickly, and I mean, this market just doesn't seem to quit. Every time somebody tries to write it off, it always comes back. So when you find a good, strong low point, a lot of times that's a good time to get in. So, and this recent sell-off right before the end of the year turned out to be no different. Just another great buying opportunity. As day traders, we don't really care so much about that. We just want the prices to move during the day. We don't care which way. But for the overall economy and so forth, I like to see the market go up rather than down. We can make money either way. A lot of times you can make it faster going down, but I just hate to see it for the big picture and the way it affects our economy and so forth. So, but anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. Hope you had a good holiday. Welcome back, and we'll be back again to do it tomorrow. This is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.